Okay, my name is Edward O'Riordan. I'm based at Teagasc Range, which is the Teagasc Beef Research Centre. Today's presentation, we are speaking about trying to optimise performance at pasture for both steers and bulls. There are probably 5 main points to the talk I am giving. The first is we're talking about benchmarking for suckler beef herds as to what type of a performance can people look for or aim for. The first might be, we can say we can produce steers at 24 months of age at a carcass weight of somewhere in the region of 390 to 400 kilos. Secondly, in the case of heifers, they can be produced at 22 months of age at a carcass weight around 300 to 310 kilos. In the case of males kept intact as bulls, they can be produced at 16 months or under 16 or at 18 months of age, where we can get carcass weights in the range of 360 to 400 kilos. So they are the benchmarks, and we know that at farm level animals are often a lot older than that. So that's the first point we're making. The second point then is we're trying to speak about the performance of animals during the winter and their subsequent grazing seasons to try and optimise performance. So in terms of their weaning performance, we ask the question, what is the optimal level of live weight gain for the winter, and what is the feed that they need to get to achieve that? We will say that the optimal level of gain for the winter is somewhere in the region of, for weanlings now, it's about 0.6 of kilogram per head per day. And that can be got on the back of good quality silage and probably 1 to 1.5 kilograms of concentrates. Now, there's an interesting point to be made on this, that if you're a producer of weanlings for sale, you can get an economic response in terms of extra live weight gain by feeding extra concentrates, and that's fine for a producer. However, when those animals go to pasture subsequently, those that are fed high concentrates during the first winter will perform poorer at pasture, and those fed a lower level of concentrates will perform better. So that by the end of the subsequent grazing season after the first winter, animals that are fed high levels of concentrates for the winter are really not that much better than those who are fed low levels for the first winter. So the economic response depends on what's happened to the cattle. If you're selling, it might pay you to feed more concentrates. If they're your own and you want to optimise your performance, maybe no more than 2 kilograms are being fed. So that's the second point we wanted to make. The third point is then if we're looking at the performance of animals going to grass for our second grazing season, and we'll divide it into 2. We look at the first, let's say, 3 months of pasture, which is spring grass. We can get something like 1.3 to 1.5 kilograms of live weight gain per head per day at pasture in spring. The question is, if we supplement them at pasture, what do we get? We will improve performance by supplements, but when we do the economics, we find that it's not actually economical to feed animals at pasture for the first 3 months. Okay? If we move on to the second 3 months of the year, let's say from July to October, November, and we ask the same question, what's the level of performance that we can get at pasture, and is there a role for concentrates? At pasture, unsupplemented in the autumn time, under good grassland management, we can get anywhere from 0.8 to 0.9 or a kilogram of live weight gain per head per day. If we add supplements, yes, we can improve that further, but the actual extra live weight response to concentrates is actually modest and probably difficult to justify. We might see an improvement, because we're coming to the autumn time, we might see an improvement in actual conformation or fat score, but overall the economics of doing it is questionable. If those animals are actually going to go indoors for later finish, where they'll be fed a high concentrate diet for finishing, well then the justification or role for concentrates at pasture before they come in would be questioned. So that's the second or third point. The next point then is that we have animals that are going to go back to grass for a third grazing season. I said in the beginning we have benchmarks of steers at 24 months of age, but we know that in many occasions steers are killed, bullocks are killed at 28 to 30 months of age, which means they're going back to grass for a third grazing season. Now, what performance can we get on those? We know that at pasture they can grow at 1 to 1.2, 1.3 kilograms per head per day in the first part of the season, as we would see with yearlings when they go out. Okay? So the question now is then, if we're producing steers at pasture, off pasture, at 30 months of age, what level of feeding might they need to get in their second winter? So they go in for the second winter with the plan to go back to grass subsequently. We know if we feed them concentrates during the winter, they will respond as would yearlings or would weanlings. However, when they come back to grass subsequently, we find, as we do with the young cattle, we find that those that are fed to grow slow for the winter will grow faster at grass, and those who are fed for the winter to grow faster will grow slower at grass. At the end of the subsequent autumn, when they're 28, 29, 30 months of age, we find there's little or no difference between the actual feeding strategies, except that you've spent money on concentrates, which you really didn't need. And at the end of the day, if I can get farmers to listen and say, look, if we do our grassland management well, and we optimise our performance at pasture, we can do so economically with minimising concentrates.